Welcome to Binging on Britain. I'm Katie, and I'll be your hostess as we gorge on bits of British history. Each week, we'll explore 10 questions about British history and archaeology. If you have a question you'd like answered, leave it in a comment and you may hear it in an upcoming episode. Let's dig in. Question number 1. What is the difference between a king or queen who is regnant versus a consort? So this came up recently in a few conversations in light of Queen Elizabeth stating that she wishes for Camilla to be queen consort upon Charles's accession. Regnants are a king or queen who is reigning or ruling as the case may be. A consort is the spouse of the reigning monarch. Additionally, there are also dowagers who are the living widow or widower of a former monarch or other member of the aristocracy. Examples of kings and queens regnant include Henry V, Edward IV, Mary I, Elizabeth I, co-rulers William III and Mary II, Victoria I, George VI, and the current monarch Elizabeth II. Former consorts include Catherine of Valois, Elizabeth Woodville, Philip II of Spain, Prince Albert, Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, and Prince Philip the Duke of Edinburgh. Of the above-named consorts, the following lived after the death of their spouse, becoming dowagers: Catherine of Valois, Elizabeth Woodville, Philip II of Spain, and Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother. They all had the right to the title queen except for Philip, who was clearly dowager king. You may have noticed that each of the kings and queens regnant have regnal numbers after their name, while their consorts do not. These numbers are only given to ruling or reigning monarchs, not their consorts. When a regnant king or queen dies, or abdicates, their consort does not rule in their place. Rather, the throne goes to the next person in the line of succession, and if that person has a spouse, that spouse becomes the new consort, while the former consort becomes the dowager. I hope I've cleared that up. But if you have questions, feel free to contact me via social media and I'll try to answer them. Question number 2. Did Henry VIII have a friend that he referred to as his little lion? I actually can't find any reference to a friend of Henry's being called a little lion. However, he did have a dear friend, Charles Brandon, who became his brother-in-law when Brandon married Henry's sister Mary. A lion was part of Brandon's emblem, and the pet name may have been used, despite my being unable to find a reference to it. Question number 3. How many sons did Henry VIII have? So, Henry had 2 acknowledged sons who survived infancy. His illegitimate son by Bessie Blount, Henry Fitzroy, Duke of Richmond and Somerset, was the only illegitimate child that Henry recognized. He predeceased his father at the age of 17 in 1536. Edward VI was Henry's long-awaited male heir, born to Jane Seymour on October 12, 1537, and succeeded his father's throne on January 28, 1547. He sadly passed away at the age of 15, leaving the kingdom to his cousin Jane Grey, who reigned as the 9 days queen before Mary I came to London to claim her birthright, deposing Jane. Catherine of Aragon had provided Henry with 3 sons. Henry, the New Year's prince, died suddenly at just 52 days of age on February 22, 1511. Additionally, Catherine was delivered of a short-lived prince on September 17, 1513, and a stillborn son in November of 1514. Anne Boleyn also likely miscarried a son in December 1534. And delivered a stillborn son on January 29, 1536, the same day as Catherine of Aragon's funeral. That brings the total of Henry's legitimate sons to 6, although none survived to adulthood and only Edward surviving infancy. There are rumors of many illegitimate sons, however. Henry Fitzroy is the only one Henry acknowledged, which brings our total to 7 sons. 2 survived infancy and none survived to adulthood. Question number 4. Was prostitution historically legal, and did brothels exist? During the Roman period, prostitution was a social norm, and while prostitutes were not considered even remotely respectable, their trade was completely acceptable. During the medieval period and into the early modern period, prostitution was seen as a lesser evil, helping to avoid the more sinful acts of rape, sodomy, and masturbation. Brothels were commonplace and at times allowed the church to control the industry by owning houses of ill repute and outlawing prostitution outside of these establishments. History Cold Case Season 1, Episode 4 documents the story of a girl who was quite likely a prostitute in the Victorian era and died at the age of 19 from syphilis. The risks of pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections were high, and along with the ever-present danger of violence, poverty, and substance abuse, meant that girls in this profession often had a short lifespan filled with unpleasantness. Question number 5. Where did the Vikings first raid in England? The monastery at Lindisfarne, also known as Holy Island, is typically noted as the first Viking raid in England. However, 4 years earlier, in 789, Vikings landed on the shores of Portland, Dorset, and caused havoc before heading back across the sea, only to return and decimate the monastery at Lindisfarne in 793. Question number 6. How many Anglo-Saxon kingdoms existed in England? The 7 Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England were Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, Kent, Essex, Sussex, and Wessex. Question number 7. What year did the Romans leave England? In 410 AD, Roman troops were recalled to Italy to defend Rome, ending the Roman era in England and allowing Germanic invaders to settle in Britannia, beginning the Anglo-Saxon period. Question number 8. What queen married her Welsh servant? Catherine of Valois, Henry V's queen, secretly secured a marriage to Owen Tudor after his death. This marriage would produce sons, one of whom fathered Henry VII, the first of the Tudor dynasty. Question number 9. Does archaeology tell us more than history? So, I think both play an important part in our understanding of the past. Both disciplines have their pros and cons, but I think the best possible outcome is when the archaeology and history match up and corroborate each other. Question number 10. What English queen died from plague? Elizabeth Woodville, Edward IV's queen, died during the reign of her son-in-law, Henry VII, after having retired to Bermondsey Abbey on June 8, 1492. In a letter from the Venetian ambassador, it is claimed that, quote, the queen widow mother of King Edward has died of plague, and the king is disturbed, unquote. Elizabeth Woodville is the only queen who matches that description, and given that her funeral was very austere, it makes sense that she may have been hastily buried to avoid spreading the contagion. Thank you so much to Mark and Shannon for your questions. I am super excited to share with you that Time Team has new episodes coming this month. On March 18th, 19th, and 20th on Time Team's official YouTube channel, they will have the first episode of their new series. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of Binging on Britain. If you have, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast wherever you listen. For ways to help support Binging on Britain, follow the links in the description for Podbean's Patron program and Patreon. Binging on Britain also has new merch. See the link in the description for all kinds of fun Binging on Britain swag. Join me next week for a new episode. Have a great day. Bye-bye.